You're tuned into the Writing Community Chat Show, the live streaming YouTube podcast that brings you the stories of authors, screenwriters, and more. Indie or established, this show's for the community, and we invite you to be a part of it. Head to the writingcommunitychatshow.com for more info. The WCCS. Together as one, we get it done.
Hello and welcome to the Writing Community Chat Show. Hello everybody and welcome to the Writing Community Chat Show. You are watching one of the UK's top 10 writing podcasts. And I'm here. My name is Chris. I also go by CJ to make life easier because I'm here with my co-host Chris. I want to know how you're doing in the chat. How has your week been? And we're about to find out how Mr. Hooley's week has been. Jesus. Chris Hooley, how are you doing? How has your week been?
Yeah, top 10 writing podcasts. I like the sound of that. That sounds good.
It is good, isn't it? It's great to get that kind of, after nearly 6 years doing this show, it's great to have that sort of recognition from a couple of different blogs. And that was last year. We were actually in the top 3, and this year we're still in the top 10. So some have crept up above us, but yeah, we're still really, really chuffed to be on the radar of the top UK writing podcasts. So yeah, it's great news.
Yeah, good week. What have I been doing this week? I've been reading stuff. So I started a series, which was the Harry. Oh, yeah, I look like an idiot now that I've said that. I don't know what they are, but I always look like that anyway. So I need to find them because The Truth About the Harry Cuba Affair was the first book in the series. And then it's the Baltimore Boys, and then it is the Alaska Sanders Affair. And how I got into that is there was a TV series on Amazon Prime with the same title of the first book, and it was brilliant. So I thought, yeah, I'll give them a go. I'll start reading them and see what they're all about.
Yeah, and have you enjoyed?
Yeah, and his name is Joel Dicker. So don't laugh, Haggett. I want to try and get him on the show. We can't laugh at his surname.
Well, I will for now because he's not on the show. But yeah, Joel Dicker sounds fantastic. I am just juggling something. There's a reason the guest is not in the lobby, and that is my fault completely. So bear with me, Chris. Chat to the audience for me.
So obviously, if you're watching live now or listening live, thank you so much. We have 360 interviews for you to go and feast at your pleasure. We've interviewed some of the best writers in the world. We've also interviewed some self-published authors, some indie authors, some indie publishers. If anyone writes, we have probably interviewed them, or at least tried to. So yeah, if you're into creative writing and you want to improve your craft and get better, then hopefully this is a show for you, because we speak to authors who are out there doing it every single year. Let's say most of them do a book a year, unless you're J.D. Barker and produce 4. But yeah, most of them do a book a year. But if you're in the trenches now and you're writing, trying to get an agent, we've had all of those people on. We've had editors on, we've had agents on, we've had New York Times bestsellers on. So yeah, plenty for you to look out for there.
Yes, we did indeed, and it's the reason our guest is not in the lobby is because I absolutely completely forgot to send the link out earlier to our guest, and she's even commented on the Instagram post, so I'm the live video. So I'm so sorry. The email has been sent, and she will be with us very soon, which is fine because this is our general chit chat time anyway. But yes, it's really good to get all those authors on the show and speak to so many different people and get so many different stories. And we do have our guest in the chat in the lobby, so thank you. It's so good to have those conversations, and what it does is it really enriches you with the writing kind of knowledge, whilst you don't even realize there's so much that we picked up from the shows, and there's so much you can also pick up from them as well. And it's just great because you hear their writing journey. And tonight's guest has been on before. Their writing journey is available on our podcast and our YouTube channel. and you can go and check that out. If you want to learn about how she got to where she is, that's all there available. And tonight she has offered us some brilliant advice, questions in advance. So we'll get some deep conversation that I'm sure you'll love very shortly.
You're going to go straight into the intro there, Agate?
Yeah, I think I may as well have. I will. I'll get tonight's guest on. So let's do it. And probably a lot of that, what I just said, was in my introduction. So I'm all over the place. So tonight, as I said, we welcome back the brilliant Richard and Judy best-selling author of psychological thrillers, Lizzy Barber. We've had her on the show before, as I mentioned, and what we've also done is met her at Harrogate Crime Writers Festival once or twice and had a drink or two there at the legendary festival. So it's always a delight to catch up with her. And as I said, she sent us some great, honest talking points ahead of the show. So we'll get stuck into them very shortly. And what I'd like you to do is get involved in the chat, make some noise, and give a massive WCCS welcome back to the brilliant, the awesome Lizzy Barber. Hello.
Hi, boys. How are you?
Really good. Thank you so much for joining. How are you doing?
It's Friday. That's all I can say. It's Friday. I have a gin and tonic.
Excellent.
I finished my book today as well, a draft of my book. So yeah, we're celebrating.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, honestly, and well done. I was sat there just before the show started saying to Chris, Lizzy's late, isn't she? She's never normally late, but there you go. That's my fault. But yeah, honestly, super congratulations on finishing a draft. It's one of those things that a lot of authors, like myself at the moment, currently stuck in a bit of a rut, think the end is never going to come. So well done. And is this kind of like the expected timeline that you had, or are you behind schedule with this, or what's the plan with that? What's
I mean, there's never been any sort of firm schedule with this, but from my personal timeline, if you want to believe this, I thought that I would be finished this book in June 2024. So over a year ago.
Yeah.
So my daughter was born in June 2024. She was due in July 2024. So I thought I would be very timely and take a month off. I was working at the time and decided to take my mat leave a month early in order to write, full time, right at the end of the draft in that month. And then my daughter came a month early. So I got no mat leave. But to be honest with you, I've had a bit of a shit year. So it has just stumbled and stumbled and stumbled. And I'm quite a slow writer anyway, but this really is slow for me. This is like on ice levels of slow. And so in a way, it's funny because I have finished the draft, but it has felt supremely unsatisfying. And I think that's also because this book is the biggest mess at the end of a draft that I've ever done, because I don't normally do messy first drafts like this. So it's kind of a weird feeling. I said to my husband when he came home from work, finish the book today. And he was like, should we celebrate? And I was like, I don't really know. But at least there is an end.
Yes.
And they always say you can't edit blank page, which I do really believe. So at least there is stuff to work on.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a thing for us, for people in the creative world. You might have an expectation of a deadline, and, even authors on a schedule, a committed deadline often don't make that. So it's something that we should be a little more relaxed with, I think, and less harsh on ourselves when it comes to deadlines. And if the creative flow is there, great, work with it. If it's not, then yeah, you got the end result, and that's the most important thing.
Yeah, I mean, I would say obviously it would be a different story if I'd been in any sort of kind of under time pressure, specific time pressure. I think I'm also one of those people who actually works better under deadlines. So the fact that I've had this kind of amorphous finish it when I finish it is actually worse for me. And so I imposed myself a deadline of wanting to finish by the end of November. And I actually asked my agent if she can give me a deadline to hand it into her in January, because I just know without that I could just keep tinkering forever.
So Lizzy, why do you think this book has been on ice, as you mentioned, in terms of slow to write? Is this your most ambitious book to date?
I think it's my most kind of psychologically complex, I would say, book. I think it's literally it's a case of life circumstances, to be honest with you. You know, we had a new baby. My dad died in February. My mum had a fall and has been kind of in and out of hospital with a hip replacement. So it's been sort of life stuff in the way, which has been very hard to write about, to be honest. But I do, it's not ambitious. Be Mine, I think, is my most ambitious in terms of kind of twists and kind of fast-pacedness. But I think this is really kind of veering into the psychological side of psychological thriller. And I would say that anyway, I tend to veer that way, but this is just kind of head first into a lot of quite complex, knotty issues.
Was that always the plan, or did you find that when bad things were happening in your life that your writing went darker?
No, I think I've always been interested in the psychological side of things. What I would say is my father and I had quite a, to be upfront, my father and I had quite a complex relationship, and we were pretty much estranged. But definitely, this stuff kind of seeps in to your writing. And actually, he had dementia, although it wasn't what he died of. And one of the things that I've been interested in is dementia and how far back dementia goes. And so that's actually something that I was kind of researching and has kind of crept its way into the plot. So it's not necessarily the darkness, but certainly kind of subject matters that I've been dealing with at the time, influences from around my life have crept in.
I love that. Obviously, bringing it. I don't love all of the hardship that you've had, as people have said in the comments, but I love the fact that you've used it in a positive way and you've channeled it into your writing, which, some people find it really difficult to do that. They can't have a difficult life and get a book finished at the same time. So if we went into the day-to-day, then you said it was the slowest book to write. Like, what was the sort of day-to-day like for you? Obviously, you've mentioned about having a young baby, and then obviously the problems with your mum and dad and stuff. So how much would you get down on a page sort of every day?
So it took me a really long time. I would say probably until at least the summer to get into any sort of flow. I would also say that my Be Mine came out in May, and so the period from, I think, maybe a month after my daughter was born last June, I had edits on that book to do with no childcare whatsoever. And so I was basically just editing in the gym creche because that was the only childcare I had, which was sort of 2 hours a day max. And then I did get some part-time help starting in January, but we're talking up till, half a day, 3 days a week. So it's been very much as and when I have the time. And I've worked out that for me, that has meant 500 words a day. I'm comfortable with that. And some days I will write 1,000 and think, what a great day. And then the next day I might write 2. And I think that actually, as I put a reel up about it recently, because I think that it's very difficult because there are so many writers out there who write really fast, messy drafts in 6 weeks, or they talk about their word counts and they talk about splurging. I do 4,000 words a day, and I think that that's fantastic if they do it. But I think that there is a real kind of perceived hierarchy to that people think that because they have this incredible output, that they are somehow kind of smashing it, whereas people who go slowly aren't. Whereas I think that I think I'm quite a considered writer. I find it very difficult to write messily, which is why this draft is so unbelievably messy for me, because I'm trying to do it differently, and I'm trying to just get something down and get to the end. Whereas I think 500 words for me tend to be 500 really good words that won't get cut up or replaced.
So if we take that, then obviously you talked about being a new mother, and obviously you're a wife as well. Like, all that chaos that you've got just of a day-to-day in terms of being a mum of a young child and being a partner.
I've got an older one as well, so 2.
Yeah. Wow. No, just obviously trying to divide your time between all of those things, because obviously I know what it's like in terms of kids vying for attention, partner vying for attention. Like, how do you find the time to sort of create in that space? Obviously, you've mentioned about trying to hit 500 words a day, but how do you navigate the sort of, time process to sort of think about, oh, this is going to be the next idea, or this is the next thing I need to write?
Well, I'm one of those people who I'm coming slowly to the terms with the fact that I have ADHD, undiagnosed. My son's just been diagnosed. And so I've been on this journey with him where I'm realizing all of these things about myself. And so I have to be permanently doing stuff. And I've always been very, very busy. And I wrote my first book when I was working full time, and that came out right before my son was born. And then I've subsequently, this is the first book I've written where I haven't also been working part-time, writing part-time, and parenting most of the time. And so I think that I am very good at jumping into pockets of time when I have them and being right in there. And I think that it's good and bad because the book permanently lives in my head. So if I'm going for a run and I'm listening to a podcast, I'm thinking about my book. And I can't remember what on earth the podcast has been about. Or if I'm taking the bus to pick up my son from school, I'm grappling with the book. It never really goes away. But what I can't do is write around the chaos. So I can't, I know people write in the evenings after the kids have gone to bed, or they'll take an hour on the weekend. I can't do that. I really need to compartmentalize stuff. And so my writing time is the 3 days a week where I have a part-time nanny. And then I am very lucky that my daughter is a very good napper. And so I write the rest of the time. She'll nap for 2 hours a day and I'll write in that time. But obviously around that, there is still everything, all the other life stuff that creeps in as well. So, any dentist or doctor's appointments, or cleaning up the house, or doing the shopping and going to the gym, all of that stuff has to fit into that time as well. So I have pockets of free time, and that free time is also kind of encroached upon by life stuff. And so I've just learned that I have to jump in when I can, and I have to jump in and jump out.
So do you jump into the writing before, because obviously I've been in similar situations where you're like, oh, let's say the house needs tidying. I've got an hour. I'm going to tidy that. And then you think, oh, I'll write after tidying. And then you've realized the hour's gone, the kids are back. You've lost your time. How do you sort of manage that sort of space? Is it like, I'll write first, I'll do a 10-minute sprint or whatever, and then I'll jump on to tidying the house?
It really depends a lot on what's niggling me, and what is, what headspace I'm in. Sometimes I just find that if I know that there are dirty dishes at the side of the sink, I can't think about writing until I've done that. Sometimes if I'm grappling with a scene and I just really need to get it done, then that needs to take precedence. So I've got a whole load of house admin stuff, and I had said I wanted to finish the book midweek, and then Friday today I was going to spend solely doing the house stuff. And then I didn't finish on Thursday. And so I thought, okay, Friday morning I will finish, and then I will do the house stuff. And I could very easily have gone, okay, well, whatever happens, I'll do the house stuff on Friday and I'll push the book until Monday. But I thought, the house stuff can wait, or I can find a pocket of time for that over the weekend when the kids are busy, because I want to finish this book today. And if I need to get it out of my brain and off my plate. And so then the scales tipped. But it's all priorities, as I'm sure you guys are used to juggling as well. It's kind of what is absolutely vital in that moment.
Yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it, where there's a lot of authors out there, or people who want to be authors, and they literally use the phrase, I don't have the time. And it's something that every single author deals with, whether they're full-time writers or not. You've still got to find the time to organize your life and your writing, and splitting it between situations you have to deal with and your creative flow. So it's one of those things where you've just got to find your own time and what works for you. And as you said, certain things work and certain things don't. And some people, can wake up in the middle of the night and find the time to write, or some people can get up in the morning, and some people have to wait till late at night. So it's really about finding what works for you, I think, is the key there for people who are still trying to figure that out.
Yeah, I would also say I have absolutely zero interest in setting an alarm for 5 a.m. and working the full
Yes.
I cannot tell you how low on my priorities that is. I need at least a 7 on the clock to wake up.
Yeah.
So writing is not more important than me waking up at 7 o'clock.
The 5 a.m. Writers Club. I think you've got a lot to answer for.
No,
Does anyone really enjoy it?
No, but some people do. And that's another thing. It's a real bugbear of mine, again, with the kind of people who have these huge word counts, is that, again, there is a real kind of perceived hierarchy to people who wake up early, thinking them as being more productive. And I don't think that that's true. They've just woken up earlier. If they then go to sleep at 8, 9 o'clock, they're not any more productive than somebody who's woken up at 7 and gone to sleep at 11.
Yeah. No, I agree.
It's just a personal irritation of mine as somebody who likes to sleep from 11 a.m. to 7 a.m.
So, Lizzy, obviously you mentioned about potentially having undiagnosed ADHD. So my question sort of attached to that is, how do you decide on a story idea that you think you can commit your time and effort to?
Somebody's very close to get into my house and my husband can deal with it. There is nothing important at 20 past 8 at night that somebody needs to knock on the door for.
That's true. I'll ring that. Yeah, so how do you decide this is the idea that I'm going to dedicate my mind to? Because obviously, I think one of the things that to try and concentrate for a long period of time on one particular idea when you're a creative and you've probably got so many different ideas coming in. So how do you sort of decide on the one that you've got and then stick with it?
With me, it's a funny thing because I always find it's like my brain starts to get impatient as I'm getting to the end of a previous book. And that idea kind of takes hold of me and gets stronger and stronger. I don't think I'll occasionally have kind of, glancing blows of ideas throughout the process. And I have I keep a notes section on my phone of book ideas. But those are more kind of, what if X? What if a woman falls in love with a plant? Just kind of jumping off points. But then I do just tend to have something that gets stronger and stronger and stronger as I'm writing the book, so that by the time I finish writing the previous book, I'm chomping at the bit to start writing this other book. I don't know why it works like that. I don't know whether, I have friends who have kind of several ideas that they jot down and then they'll send them to their agent and say, which one of these do you like? Wow. I don't work like that. And I've already got the next idea for the book that I want to write after this. And I've had it for a few weeks now. And it's almost kind of propelling me to finish the previous one before. It's good that Scott appreciates my love for the Venus flytrap.
Definitely.
Little Short of Forest is a fantastic film.
Having multiple ideas and sending it through, I think do you think that's a case of that author potentially thinking, okay, these are some ideas I've got, let's see what sticks, without really having a passion for one over the other?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that I spend a lot of time talking to writer friends, kind of every single day, voice notes, messages, where we're doing, what we're at. We talk a lot about our process. And I think that what it's made me realize is that really everybody does have a unique process. And there's always a case of grass is greener. And there's always a case of like, oh, next time I'm going to plot my book like blah does, or I'm going to think of 10 ideas like blah does. And then, my life will be so much easier. But I think it is just the case of how you work. I think the people who maybe who have those kind of bullet point, lots of different ideas, they might tend to be more plot first rather than character. Whereas for me, I think character definitely comes to me, or character and kind of atmosphere and feeling comes to me before I have a kind of blow by blow plot. And I actually find plot, literally the beats of a book I struggle with the most of all of it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Some of the stuff you sent through to me earlier about talking points, some of it was really interesting. And one of them you said potentially like a hot topic, which was publishing versus self-publishing, and working with publishing houses. So that's a conversation I thought, yeah, I'd love to talk about it, especially with someone who's kind of going through the transition. So why did you feel like you needed to sort of change directions?
I didn't, just to be clear, I didn't self-publish. They're an indie publisher rather than the big five.
Sorry, indie publisher, yes.
I don't know anything about self-publishing. So just before you ask me questions on that. I think the landscape is changing a lot. I think that you know, as the kind of typical cliche author who has kind of had, you know, visions of certain publishing houses in my head, that's always been a direction that I've wanted to go down. And I think that I was really interested to give a different perspective a try. And it has been really different and very interesting, because I've gone from 2 big 5 publishers to a kind of hungry indie, and just everything about it is very different. I think, you know, one of the big things that strikes me is the cover design process, because when you're with the big 5, you're so much part of the machine that they're like, this is the cover, any thoughts, unless you kind of are vehemently opposed to it, this is what's happening. Whereas with Be Mine, I remember having lunch with my editor, and she had this kind of folder of like almost like vision boards of different things. And she'd said to me previously, you know, oh, what covers do you like? What do you think? And then she sent me all of these things and did different briefs and was like, what do you think? And I was like, oh, you're asking me? You're asking me what I think? And it was brilliant, because then they sent round, you know, we whittled it down. And even actually, I didn't like the style that they'd gone with. And I knew that another writer with Datura had this fantastic cover, Alice, who wrote The Glass Woman, and she'd said the name of the designer, who I think is called Mark Dawson. I will double check that. It was definitely Mark. And I said, oh, I loved his cover. Is it possible to get him? And they were like, yeah, sure. And then they sent me these designs, and literally down to the level of, you know, I sent it to my agent. She sent it around the agency, and we had all of this feedback and kind of opinion polls. And then we said, you know, we didn't like, there was a door knocker that had the 8 symbol on it. So we said, oh, can we see it without that? And actually, can we see the shadows of the palm leaves over the front? And so it became this really collaborative process that I just was not used to at all with my previous books, because it was like, this is the cover. So things like that. And I think generally it's been a really collaborative process in a way that I haven't really experienced before.
So what were your expectations then? Obviously, you talked about coming from the 2 sort of big 5 publishers. What were your expectations before you went with them? And then what were your expectations before you opted to go with an indie? And how have they been different from what you actually initially thought?
I mean, it's difficult to say what my expectations were before going into the big 5, because I didn't know anything else. I mean, one of the things actually that I mentioned to Chris A about genre is that before publishing my first book, My Name is Anna, I had no thoughts about genre. I didn't think of myself as being a thriller writer. I thought of myself as being a writer who had this idea for a book, and this was the book. And one of the things that was kind of not necessarily having my eyes open, but that I hadn't really appreciated, was that they were like, you know, this is a commercial thriller book, and this is the kind of cover you have because you're a commercial thriller writer. And then what commercial thriller are you going to write next? And I didn't, you know, I didn't have an expectation at all. I didn't realize this kind of being part of this machine meant being part of the genre writing side of things. So that was interesting for me. I think that going into an indie, again, I had no idea because I hadn't had an experience before, but I didn't expect it to be so collaborative because I hadn't experienced that before. And I didn't expect, you know, I was probably used to a certain level of formality that you get with a big publishing house. And so that was nice, but also a little bit kind of, I wouldn't say alarming, but just kind of a difference for me was that I was used to kind of sales reports and kind of weekly, you know, information being passed on to me, whereas kind of asking for that, they were almost like, what, you want sales information, you know, that. So that was different. You know, it's much greener and it's much more organic in an indie environment, which is great because you're so much closer to people. You know, I've had a fantastic relationship with the marketing manager, and I've suggested, you know, ideas for things like, did you guys get the tattoos at Harrogate?
Yes.
Yeah. So I said to April, the marketing manager at Datura, I can't remember what it was for, but I was like, oh, it'd be really cool if we could get some of the infinity symbol, which is a kind of big part of the book, tattoos made up. And she was like, oh yeah, great. And I'll get some extra for you. And so I had these things, which you wouldn't necessarily get that from a big publisher. You know, I've had to make my own postcards and make my own flyers and do all of that kind of stuff my own with a big publisher. Whereas they were so excited about those kind of small details in a smaller publisher. There's so much more attention and so much more time for you, I suppose, is the kind of overriding thought.
That's what I was going to ask off kind of having worked with, say, the big five. Was there anything that you've taken with your professional experience to them that they've learned from you? Interestingly,
I don't know if it's professional experience that I've necessarily learned from a big five, but I think I'm a kind of you don't ask, you don't get type person. And I remember they came to Harrogate for the first time and had printed out some flyers and kind of said inside the tent. So anybody who hasn't been to Harrogate, I've said it before, it's our Glastonbury, okay? It's the big festival for authors and people interested in crime and thrillers. And they're inside the tent, which is where all the action happens. There are these kind of trestle tables. And they said, oh, do you think it's okay for us to leave flyers about? And I was like, give them to me. And I went and put them out. And I think that there's maybe you get like a certain ballsiness or you back yourself having had that experience. Whereas if you're an indie, you kind of are finding your feet a little bit more. So I'd say that kind of thing, I would say that I kind of took over and didn't feel particularly kind of embarrassed about doing. But that might just be my general nature.
So for someone who's very busy in, you know, your personal life, in writing and doing everything, you know, at a high level, just, you know, really kind of busy in life, what does it mean then to have something like the Harrogate Crime Writers Festival where you can go in and focus solely on your sort of your persona as an author? How does that differ and how does that feel?
Oh, it's amazing. I've already booked 3 nights next year. It is. You're so right. It is. It's very weird stepping wholly into that role. And actually, 2 years ago, my daughter was 5 weeks old, and I was going. So
wow.
We went and we rented a house in Harrogate with my whole so my immediate family, you know, my husband and both kids, and my mother-in-law came up with us. And I found that really tricky because I had been I'd only ever been as a mum because I only started writing. I was only published when I had my son. But I had only ever been up by myself before. And then suddenly I felt like I had my foot in both camps. It was a bit like being a teenager, but you're living at home where, you know, you're going out as a London teenager, like going out clubbing. And then your mum's like, what do you want for dinner? What time are you home? You're like, Mum, you know, suddenly I felt like that, like I had to justify going out to my husband and my mother-in-law and like telling them what my plans were in a way that I hadn't experienced. Whereas this year it was just golden because I was like, I can sleep in if I want to. If I want to leave the tent at 12, I'm going to leave the tent at 12. I don't care. So it's brilliant. It's really freeing and it's very nice. Again, you know, being, you know, mum, Marlo, my son is called Marlo, you know, Marlo's mum at school. It's very nice to solely be known as Lizzy Barber, an author. It's very validating.
Do you ever get any of the parents that kind of recognize you as an author from reading your work at the school?
No, I wouldn't say that way around, although they've just launched a book club and they asked me to be the kind of inaugural book. Yeah. And so I went along to the book club, I think it was last week, which was really sweet, actually. I think, you know, to be fair, my son's school is in the city and the parents are all quite kind of finance type. So I'm like the weird art person. It's like I don't think that many of them necessarily read fiction a lot. Yeah. So I don't think I think it's kind of, I'm like a bit of an oddity. But I don't think anybody's necessarily done it the reverse way around of like having read my books and then realizing who I am. I don't particularly think I'm that successful yet, to be honest.
So Lizzy, I was going to ask you again, going back a little bit about the publishers and obviously the big five and the indie. I was going to ask, based on what you now know, what would be, if someone was in your position in terms of, you know, let's say they've got book one and they don't know what they they want to do. What would be your red flags and green flags?
I think it's all about the editor. I think that for me, and what I would certainly look for, what I would want is an editor who is really passionate about you as an author. And it's not necessarily your book, because I think that publishing is incredibly fickle and they run after the next big thing. I think that a green flag would be definitely somebody who was talking about you, your career, where they see you, and building a brand rather than focusing solely on the book. I think focusing solely on the book would potentially be a red flag for me, because I think that says that they could very easily drop you.
Yeah.
But I don't, unfortunately, I don't think, probably across publishing, this is probably an incredibly candid thing to say, but I don't think that there is that much loyalty, unless you are a big brand. And I think you have to remember at the end of the day that it is a business and the financials are important.
On that, then, obviously, I think you're very good at promoting and again, I'm going to steal from Agate in terms of when you mentioned about persona. Your author persona online, I think you're very, very good at. And I remember having a conversation with you at Harrogate about being a brand as an author and the things that you need to do. So again, what advice would you give to somebody if they were looking to improve their brand?
Do you mean from a kind of a presence, or from a book perspective, or kind of the writing perspective?
Yeah, I'd say both, in terms of how can they improve their craft in terms of the finished product, and how can they improve their brand as in, like, you know, their social media presence or their readership and things like that.
Well, I think from a social media kind of persona presence, I would say that it is all about doing things that feel authentic to you. So there are lots of authors who are total introverts and they hate doing stuff on camera and they hate doing interviews, and the idea of doing reels makes their skin crawl. So don't do it. People will sense that. It's no fun for everyone. I don't have the time or the inclination to do newsletters or Substacks, but there may be plenty of authors out there who feel that they have a lot to offer. So I think it is about finding your niche. I love being on camera. I trained as an actress. I wanted to be an actress for years. I like the sound of my own voice. I don't mind being silly. I don't mind being filmed. And I say, every publisher that I'm with, I say, use me for that. I love being in front of an audience. I love doing interviews, on camera stuff, on panels. I'm very comfortable to kind of debate and be asked hard questions. And Chris H, you asked me lots of uncomfortable questions in Harrogate in the tent, and I don't mind that at all. I'm also used to kind of difficult characters, so I don't mind that. But if that is something that makes your skin crawl, don't do it.
Are you saying I'm a difficult character?
No, I'm just saying like nothing really phases me. I can answer any question.
I get that. And definitely, during those interviews, you can tell, and it's Ross says Hooley's a difficult character. You can tell, like, you're very comfortable in front of the audience, and that is a good thing. And there's a lot of authors that are very much behind the screen introverts that do struggle with that. And I've spoken about it before, where going somewhere like the Harrogate Crime Writers Festival or to your local library or anywhere that readers might be, and just getting yourself out there can be massively beneficial. So I think more people should try and push themselves to be a bit more like you, Lizzy.
Well, I don't know though. I would say don't push yourself. There are so many avenues to being present as an author. Luckily, funnily enough, I was talking to Charlotte Duckworth, who's one of my best author friends, about acting, and she asked me whether it was difficult, whether acting was more difficult than being an author. And I said to her, one of the great things about it is that when you're trying to get an agent, when you're an actress, you need to be in something for them to come and see you. Whereas for being an author, you know, obviously there's the same amount of rejection. It's difficult on both levels, but to try and get an agent, you can physically submit a piece of paper. You don't have to be showing yourself. So I think that, you know, it is a written medium. And if you feel more comfortable hiding behind a screen or behind words, then there are avenues to being successful where you can do that rather than prattling about on Instagram, which is what I spend most of my time doing.
We've got a question from Anya, and as I mentioned in the chat, this is not our usual Road to Writing show. Lizzy's been on the show before to do that. So if you have a question for Lizzy, please send them in, and we'll ask them throughout the show. Anya says, what are the greatest challenges you believe emerging writers face, and how can they overcome these obstacles?
I mean, I think that one of the challenges is just oversaturation. I think even since my first book was published in 2019, even since I've started writing, I think there are just more and more. I don't know whether it's because authors have, you know, writing and reading has become a kind of sexier industry. More people are reading, you know, the TikTokification of everything, that there is just a glut of people. So I think that is difficult because there's a lot of noise. And so I think it is just about, you know, honing your craft and sharpening exactly what it is you are writing and believing in what you're writing. I think the other problem is, and I don't know what the answer to that is, but I think that a major problem facing any author today is big brands and the general inability to cut through when so much of the market share goes to such a small percentage of writers. I mean, not that these writers don't deserve it, but you look at the Sunday Times top 10, and it is Richard Osman and Colleen Hoover, and it's the same with New York Times, and absolutely well deserved to them. But whereas even when I published my first book 6 years ago, Sunday Times, I think my name is Anna, charted at 12 in the hardback chart, and so actually for me then, Sunday Times was not a shoo-in, but it was something that I can envisage myself getting at some point in my life if I continued. Now it's not even a consideration for me, just because it is so oversaturated and there is so much money in those big brands. I don't know how you overcome those as a writer, except to just maybe reconsider what success looks like for you. And there are so many different avenues to success, right? And there are also so many different barometers for success. Like success for one person might be just finishing a book. For another, it might be publishing it. For another, it might be publishing it in hardback or winning awards. You know, I suppose the good thing about writing is that there are lots of opportunities for feeling validated. It's just, you know, maybe seeing what is realistic for you to set your sights on.
Yeah. There's one thing that I go back to is a tip that it relates to writing and relates to creative industries and working like the podcast and everything, and look at its stats. And it's about enjoying the process, not the result. And I think if you can get into that mindset that you're creating work, you're enjoying that process, and you know someone might read it, and if so, great. If you're doing that, I think the pressure's off those sort of end results, and it might feel a little easier at times.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. And certainly my kind of writers WhatsApp group, we constantly remind ourselves that the writing is the only thing that you can control.
Yeah.
So if you are loving that and you are focusing on that, you need to cut out the rest of the noise. And even on a genre level, you know, I think if you start trying to kind of move towards trends or think, you know, oh, I hear that romantasy is the big new trend, I'll write that. That is where things get really dangerous, because you're already behind, basically. So you've got to just back what you're writing, love what you're writing, and then the rest will hopefully follow.
Yeah, good. Thank you, Anya, for that question. If you have any more people, please do send them in. So
sorry, I keep having a little smirk because uncomfortable questions in a tent should be a new segment.
I like it.
But the only reason why that happened is because we were chatting to loads of people at Harrogate. And I'd ask them questions, and normally they would kind of walk away after a little bit. And you just stayed and you answered all the questions, and then my brain just kept, ask this, ask this, ask this. And yeah, before, like, I pretty remember Chris just walking away from the conversation. He was like, yeah, they're just chatting away. But we've talked about a lot of the things we've mentioned tonight, you know, in terms of, you know, the ADHD. And I remember you talking about your children and how difficult it is.
Yeah,
and
my
stuff.
son hadn't been diagnosed, actually. He got his diagnosis, FYI.
Yeah. But
Just
that's
catch
really
you guys up.
you see a different side to being an author. Like, a lot of people would like to paint the image of, oh, I sit at my desk and I write these words and then the book just magically comes out, and they don't talk about the trials that they have going through it and the difficulties they can face. And I think the more people that do that, the better it is in terms of making it realistic for people to actually achieve this dream that they have. Because a lot of people watch the show and, you know, they'd like to write a book, or, you know, they're drowning in their own self-doubt, or I can't do it, I haven't got the time. But when they hear stories like yours, it becomes more achievable in terms of, do you know what, if she can do all that, then I can find the time to maybe work on the idea that I've got. And, you know, maybe we do bring a section called Uncomfortable Questions in a tent.
Yeah.
But on the back of that, I was going to say, has anyone got an uncomfortable question for us that's watching now?
Yeah,
we might as well.
as long as they're not, you know, not 18 plus. Let's just say.
Yeah, we'll filter those out, don't worry.
We've got a good group.
Yeah. And uncomfortable questions. There are some people that can answer those pretty well. There's some people that can't, and I think we're in a safe group right now. Yes, we'll filter any questions that might be a bit inappropriate, Lizzie. Don't you worry. I was going to ask. Yeah. So the draft is finished now. So that process is taking you a while, as you mentioned. So for people interested in the process, what is the next step for you? And in relation to the indie press as well, what happens between the finished draft, which happened today, and what happens between that and the next step and getting it in front of readers, basically?
So I spent 20 minutes after having finished the draft trying to work out how to change the font on Scrivener, which is a writing platform that I use, which is, I would really recommend, by the way. I've only used it. This is the this is maybe the second book I've written it on. Yeah. So Be Mine was the first book I've used it. And it is really fantastic for somebody with a really addled brain like me, who to break things up into segments, have chapters, be able to move stuff around. So the first thing I have done is change the font, because I have been writing this book for such a long time. I've got screen eyes. So it sounds really silly, but I have changed the font so that I can look at it with fresh eyes. And then I basically I'm going to go to the start, and it needs I cannot tell you, it needs a huge amount of editing. And some chapters I have left notes for myself, and like, I know that presently is going to fucking hate Past Me, because Past Me has been like, when you rewrite this chapter, do X, which is so much more work. But it was just one of those things where I was like, I need to move on.
Yeah.
So I need to deal with all of that. And then I am giving it to my agent on the 12th of January. We have put that deadline in. And then I'm going to wait for her feedback. But I am going to be entirely honest with you, because I probably am way too candid and way honest. There is a part of me that thinks that this might not actually work as a book, and that I might junk it. And it is so painful to think about, because I have spent the best part of 2 years writing it. But I have doubts in my mind as to whether this will actually be able to be. There are a lot of things that I worry don't work. And it's just a case of, if she feels the same way and she reads it, I hope she's not watching, but if she feels the same way, I am very prepared for her to say this isn't the book, because I think that I'm kind of ready to take a step up in my career with whatever I do next. And I haven't had, not with Be Mine, but I've had a kind of quite an uneven publishing experience previously. And I don't really want to go through that process again. Yeah. And so I am putting my big girl pants on. And if she comes around and says it'll work, but you're going to basically have to rewrite this entire book, I am very prepared to give her the idea for the new book and say, do you think that we should just work on this?
My advice for that would be definitely don't mention any of this to her, and don't give her the preconception of your doubts, because that might put it in her head that it doesn't work. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And you
No,
want
no,
her
I
to have
think-
an opinion on that book then.
Yeah. But we'll see what she says. But I'm fully that is on the back of my mind. But if she says it's great, you know, the normal level of stuff that you have to work on after you've done a draft, which, you know, there will be structural stuff, there will be character stuff, but she says the bones are there, then I will work on it with her until we both think that it is in good enough shape to take it out to on submission.
And
sorry, I was going to ask an uncomfortable question there. Why do you think you've got that niggling sort of doubt in the back of your mind? Is it because you are consciously trying to take that next step up in your career? Is it because it's taken you a little bit longer than normal and you feel like maybe that's kicking in with the doubt?
It's probably both. I also think that this is the 5th book I've written, and I think you do get a kind of spidey sense of when stuff is working and when it's not working. And I think I love the setup, I love the characters, but I'm not sure whether I'm trying to fit square pegs into round holes with the actual plot mechanics, and that I'm kind of yaddering certain stuff that doesn't actually tie in together because it fits my purposes, to be totally honest with you. But I definitely think that a lot of it is, it feels stale to me because I've been writing it so long. It's actually one of those things where it's funny. If you write a scene over too long a period of time, in my head, I'm like, oh, fuck, they've been banging on for ages. And they actually haven't. It's just that it's taken me so long to write this scene that it feels like, you know, they've been in a coffee shop for weeks. And actually it's the normal amount of time that they'd be in a coffee shop in a scene. So there's definitely a sense of that. And it feels very stagnant to me. But I just have a sixth sense that it's not, stuff isn't working. And I feel like the last time I sent a book to an agent for the first time was a few years ago now. And so I kind of don't really remember how much work goes into a book. I keep telling myself in the first draft of Out of Her Depth, the main character was an Oxford professor who killed the antagonist on the Bridge of Sighs and like bashed her brains against the bridge. And that is all gone, completely gone. So I keep telling myself like stuff does change. I just have a sense that there's a lot of work that needs to be done on this, but we'll see. I'll keep you posted.
You'll get there. We've got a question that kind of links into what you were just talking about, and it's from Halo. Uncomfortable question. Thank you. What's the worst thought you've had about your writing? It could have been what you just spoke about, and how did you overcome it? Slaughtering imposter syndrome? ?
I'm not sure I understand the bit about slaughtering imposter syndrome.
I guess that's the question. Is that kind of one of the things?
Oh, did I? Yeah. No, I still have imposter syndrome. I think the worst thought is this kind of awareness of the thought of never being published again, that you're done. And that is, I suppose, something that hangs over me with this book. It's like, is that it? And especially on a genre sense, you know, it's like, is our thrillers dead? Is my thriller dead? Will anyone publish me again? That's the kind of constant fear that you kind of live on the high wire of as an author, I think. And I think that's probably partly because I've moved around. I've had three different publishing houses. And so I keep saying, like Orphan Annie, I'm like, I just want a home. I just want an editor who loves me, you know. But I think that is part of it, is I haven't had that constant reassurance and the constant kind of backing from the same publisher, which, you know, it has good and bad points, but it doesn't build for security. So I haven't overcome it. So if you've got any tips for that, you can tell me.
Ross says, thank you very much, Ross. How do you deal with uncomfortable people asking you incessant questions in a tent?
Just drink more.
Yeah. I was going to say that's pretty much what you did.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't really mind uncomfortable questions because, Yeah, I find it quite fun.
But Ross also said,
Oh.
alternatively, 3 different publishing houses have backed your writing, which is freaking awesome, which it is. So
That is
definitely,
great. Thank you for that, Ross.
yeah. Any more uncomfortable questions? And
yeah, I've got one.
go on.
So if you didn't get published again, would it change how you feel about writing?
I think once you get to this stage, yes. I think once it becomes your career, and I think my life has changed completely in the last couple of years in that I'm not working so I was working in the restaurant business with my brother for nearly 15 years, and he took a step back at the time that it coincided with me going on mat leave, and so I haven't gone back to work. And so this is my the last 18 months is my time as being a full-time author. And so I think being a full-time author and having that as your career and not being published, it stops being a hobby or something you do for yourself or do for fun. So I think if I was never published again, I don't think I would write again necessarily. I think that kind of doing it for pleasure, maybe I would do it for somebody else's pleasure, as in maybe I would start writing stories for my children, or telling stories to my children. But I definitely don't think I would tinker with a book unless I was considering it being published.
Do you not think though that you could have other avenues in terms of, you said about being an actress, that you could write screenplays, or you could write scripts, or you could
sorry, and actually generally writing scripts or writing screenplays is something that I would in any way love to look into further down the line. Actually, one of Out of Her Depth is under option, which is is a tiny percentage of a tiny chance of going anywhere. But one of the things that I have said is that if it ever reaches that incredible height of actually going anywhere, I would love to, even if it's not writing, I'd love to be in a room, because I love to do that. And filmed a million years ago as a baby intern, and loved being part of that world. So yeah, absolutely, I definitely segue. You're not going to be writing poetry. That's not going to happen. But I'd love to write. I'd love to be in a writer's room, or doing scripts, being on the Succession team, that kind of thing. I'd love to do.
If you're interested in the writing room, we floated this idea a couple of times over the year or 2 years. We were going to do a YouTube sort of series of basically writers in a therapy session, writers room in Zoom, basically. Yeah, so it's a Zoom-based writers therapy group, a comedy.
Okay.
But yeah, so we haven't taken it anywhere, but that was one of our ideas, and I think would be good to watch.
I think I need some Lizzy Barber poetry now that you're so against it. You're like, you never get me writing poetry, but I'm thinking
I'm not a poet. I like it. I'll do a haiku or a limerick.
You could do either of the book.
Yeah,
that should be a challenge. When you go to Harrogate, we should all write a poem, and we should have to deliver it in the tent.
Okay, fine. I'll see you there next year.
Yeah, we had Miranda Juice doing opera, and that was amazing. Did you see that?
No.
Miranda Juice. Oh.
Yeah. Doing opera.
Yes.
Whilst
it was the stuff of legend.
Anyway,
so
okay. I need more.
If you want to tell it, Chris, you can tell them.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, I think it was you have to be there moment.
Okay. Yeah. Well, sadly, there was no karaoke, which is my favorite night of the fucking year. So maybe opera is the new one.
But that was because there was no karaoke, and because the night before, myself and Agate had been speaking to Miranda Juice, and we discovered that she had a talent for opera. We started playing a game of dares amongst a group of like 8 people. So the dares got progressively harder as the night went on. And then it was my turn to give a dare. And I said to Miranda that she had to sing opera in front of the whole tent. And she did. And it was amazing.
That is incredible.
Yeah. So poetry for us next year. We're going to perform.
Okay. I'm going to start it now. It'll take me that long.
Okay, so our time is basically up. So what I'd like to do, Lizzy, is for you to let everyone know where they can find you on social media, where they can buy your latest books, and generally where they can stalk you in the nice kind of way.
You can stalk me. I'm more often than not found on Instagram at by Lizzy Barber. By as in by the author, not BUY, by the book, but you should also do that. And I am occasionally on TikTok. I am not really on X anymore. But I love talking to authors and readers and writers. So find me there. You can buy my book Be Mine on probably Amazon is the easiest, or on the Datura website. Datura is my publisher, and they have a really great bookshop, and obviously Waterstones online, etc. Or if you're in India, it has been published in India, so you can buy it there.
Wow, that's I know Chris is laughing at Ross's comment there. Uncomfortable man intent. Yeah.
It's nice little limbo.
How is the kind of response to your book being published in India? How's that been?
Oh, it's been lovely. I mean, I've never had a book published in India, and they've all been. It's been so lovely. I mean, the publishers are fantastic. Again, they're really indie. They've sent out these kind of amazing little authors packs with their tote bag, and I think that their logo is a chai cup, and so they sent chai cup scented candles with the book, which was great. But no, it's one of those things where you're like, this is a book written by set partly in San Francisco. Is it going to resonate? And I found that the same things have resonated with the Indian audience, which has been wonderful. And I'm really excited because I am going to Sri Lanka next Easter, but we're stopping over in Mumbai. And so I've told my publishers, because they're based in Mumbai, and I've said,
wow,
if I can do any events or meet any readers, I'd love to do that, because what an amazing opportunity.
Yeah, that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for your comments, including Ross's recent poem, which I worked out that's what that was. Do you want to read the poem?
Me?
I don't read it.
You're not reading it? Oh, okay. Yes, you can read it on the chat if you watch it. Yes, so Lizzy, thank you so much. And thank you, everyone, for your questions. But yeah, Lizzy, like I said, everyone, we've had Lizzy's Road to Writing story. If you want to go check that out, please do so. And thank you for this journey tonight, because you've been very honest, been very open about your journey, about your doubts as an author. And that's something we really kind of do cherish on this show, because like Chris said, very importantly, it relates to people in the real world that don't just see the big successes and just the author being full-time and getting the job done. It's like there's a real life in between those stories being published and created. So thank you so much for being honest with us. And yeah, always welcome on the show. So thank you very much.
Thank you guys for having me. I will see you in Harrogate, if not before, for more uncomfortable questions.
I love the fact that we're now like the uncomfortable questions people. That's great.
Thanks,
guys. Happy Friday.
Absolutely.
Happy Friday.
Yep. Stay safe, everybody. And hang on, quick comment there. What an awesome guest. Great to hear from someone who was so authentic and upfront about experiences, and amazing interview. And it all began in a tent. And someone said, according to the strike tomorrow. So yeah, thank you, everybody. Please stay safe. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you all very soon. Bye from us.
Thank you, guys. Bye.